Hi, my name's Sarah.
I'm Vanessa.
And we're here to answer your questions about captive breeding of big cats and our sanctuary work.
Let's dive in. Thank you. Cool. So where are big cats from and what are their range countries? So we've got the lion in Africa across 26 ranged countries, in fact. And then there's also the Asiatic lion, which can be found in India currently. We've got tigers in Asia, so across China, Vietnam, Laos. And then we've got the jaguars in Central and South America, and then leopards in Africa and Asia.
And the final species of big cats are the snow leopard. And what we should say is that unfortunately, due to pressures, things like human-wildlife conflict, reduced habitat destruction, and illegal wildlife trade, all big cat species, their populations are now in decline, unfortunately. Thanks. What is captive breeding? Well, I mean, it kind of says what its name is on the tin. Captive breeding is the breeding of big cats in captivity. It's often in a quite an intensive capacity. So obviously these animals aren't in the wild, they're not choosing to mate, they've not just come across each other. This is often intensive, and these animals are being forcibly mated.
In the wild, a tigress will give birth every 2 to 2.5 years to give her enough time to raise her baby, whereas in captivity, this can happen 2 to 3 times a year, which obviously takes a toll on the body. Thank you. So, can big cats in captivity be rewilded? And this is something that we come up against all the time. So there's a real big difference between having wild animals which are rescued, rehabilitated, and then released back into the wild where they've come from. However, with captive bred animals, they have been hand-reared, they haven't been taught the necessary skills, and they are unsuitable to be released back into the wild because they simply don't know what to do.
It's something that really takes time to learn how to hunt, for example. And an animal that's been hand-reared by humans, so it doesn't have a fear of humans, it might associate humans with food, it's really difficult to then take the animal and just release it into the wild.
That's why it's really important to have the grandfathering clause, where animals are not bred and used for interactions, and they actually live the rest of their lives out in species-appropriate care and are very comfortable.
Thanks. So why can't they have a good life in captivity? So this is really all to do with the care that they receive and the conditions in which they're kept in. Obviously, our true sanctuaries, so places like Lions Rock in South Africa, there's no exploitation that occurs. So these are animals that have been rescued from exploitative circumstances. There's no breeding that goes on, there's no interaction with the public. They have vast spaces to roam, species appropriate care. And really this is the best possible life for an animal that's been rescued from an exploitive captive situation.
Thank you. All right, so what if they're in a big cage and have a lot of space to roam? Okay, I mean, space is a great thing, but unfortunately that space isn't free from the exploitation of forced breeding and, unnatural behaviors and being crammed together.
And the space is just one aspect of it. And what might look like a big enclosure or a big cage to you and I, is probably vastly, vastly smaller than what the territory that a tiger would roam in the wild, or a pride of lions would roam in a day together. It's really not comparable.
All right, so how many big cats are in Four Paws Care? I think the number right now stands at 111. So there's 98 in Lions Rock in South Africa. There are 9 in Verlede, Netherlands.
And there are 3 in Tierart Sanctuary in Germany, and 1 actually currently being kept in a bear sanctuary in Pristina.
The number changes constantly because we are always rescuing big cats.
Thank you. So how much does a big cat, such as a tiger, need to eat every day? Do they get enough food or exercise? Tigers in the wild and in captivity will obviously have really, really different diets. They tend to do a really big meal, and then they'll fast for a number of days. Whereas in captivity it is slightly different, and they've got obviously a much different lifestyle, so they're much more sedentary in captivity. In the wild they're obviously territorial, and they'll roam really quite far distances, so it's really different. So you have to be quite careful about the kind of food that you're giving an animal that's in captivity in comparison to what it would have in the wild. Thanks. Wouldn't the solution be if we held no animals in captivity, but have a huge amount of large wildlife sanctuaries? But I guess this is far from the reality. So yeah, quite right. Unfortunately, it is far from reality. And our ultimate dream, our goal would be there's no wildlife held in cruel captive conditions. But unfortunately, while those institutions, while those establishments exist, places like Lions Rock and Four Paws, that's what we're here to help rescue, basically, to give these animals a life free of exploitation, where they can live the rest of their days, you know, until they die of natural causes, natural circumstances.
And what we can do as well is really tackle the root causes of why these animals are in captivity in the first place. And what we can do is raise awareness and then change international laws so that these animals are better protected.